everyone, it's Sarah and welcome to my crochet channel. Today's video I'm going to show you how to take some of your leftover yarns and make a really fun crochet hook or knitting needle holder. This is just made with a cup that I had on hand, and it's super cute because it's a Chihuahua. And you make the coaster, and it can be used as a coaster, and then you add it to the top and tie it on. And these open holes leave lots of spaces for crochet hooks and scissors and things like that. It's a great way, like I said, to use up some leftover yarns and make something fun and useful. They also make great gifts for knitters and crocheters. Now you can find this crochet pattern on my blog, and I'll put that blog link down in the notes underneath this video. To make the crochet hook and knitting needle holder or scissors holder, you're going to need a cup. And this is just one I had on hand that I really liked. You can use something like that. You can use one of these plastic cups. This one got burnt in the microwave, so I'm going to use it and not waste it. You can also use a jar like this, and anything you have left over, like a mayonnaise jar or something like that, to make a crochet hook or knitting needle holder. You're going to need just a little bit of yarn. The coaster itself measures about 6 inches across, so you can use any leftover yarn that you have on hand. This is a medium weight number 4 acrylic, and for today's demonstration I'm going to be using this pink. It's from Crafter's Secret from Hobby Lobby. You can use acrylic, cotton blend, any yarns that are a medium weight number 4 that you have left over from another project. You're going to need enough to make the coaster, the tie, and then also add a little ball inside, and that keeps your crochet hooks and knitting needles from jabbing into the bottom of your cup. You just add that little ball, and when you put them in, it goes right into that ball of yarn. So I'm going to say you're going to need about an ounce worth of yarn. We're going to be crocheting today with our J hook, which is a 6.0 millimeter crochet hook. And we're using just a little bit bigger hook because we want nice big openness between these stitches on these first few rows so we can put our crochet hooks through those holes. You're also going to need a needle to weave in your ends, and then you'll also need your scissors. We're going to begin with our slip knot, and then we're going to chain 2 chains, 1 and 2. Now we're going to stitch 8 single crochets in the second chain from the hook. This is our first one, this is our second. We'll go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, and go through both loops. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whoops, there we go, 6, and it is going to be a little bit snug, 7 and 8. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're going to join to our first single crochet with a slip stitch. So we'll pull that loop in, then pull that loop through the loop that's on our hook and chain 3. And that is row 1. On row 1 we have 8 single crochets. We joined to our single crochet and chained 3. For row 2 we need to have a 4th chain, and that's because the chain 4 counts as a double crochet chain 1. Now we're going to go in the next stitch and stitch a double crochet, chain 1, and a double crochet. You yarn over your hook, go in the stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2 loops, yarn over and go through the second 2 loops, and then we're going to chain 1. And we're going to repeat this all the way around. Double crochet in the next stitch and chain 1. Double crochet in the next stitch and chain 1. and we're going to have 8 sets of those double crochets, chain 1. One, two, three, four, five, 6, 7, and 8. So we have our 8 sets of double crochet, chain 1. We're going to join to the 3rd chain of those first 4 chains because remember, it counted as a double crochet, chain 1. So here's our slip stitch. We're going to slip stitch in the first chain 1 space, and then we're going to chain 4. And this is the way that row 2 should look. Now for row 3, this chain 4 also counts as a double crochet, chain 1. We're going to double crochet in that same chain 1 space and chain 1. And then we'll repeat stitching a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1 in each of the chain 1 spaces. So we'll go to our next chain 1 space and stitch a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1. And we'll repeat this, working all the way around. And this is what's giving us those open spaces so we can slide in our knitting needles and crochet hooks and scissors and other tools that we might want to have sitting next to us when we're working on our projects. Pens and pencils will work as well. I always keep a red and a black and a blue pen next to where I'm working on a project so I can make notes on the patterns. Double crochet, chain 1, and double crochet, chain 1. This brings us to our last chain 1 space, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1. Here's our last double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1 for row 3. We're going to join to the 3rd chain of that initial chain 4 with a slip stitch. Then we're going to slip stitch in the chain 1 space and chain 4. And there's row 3. So row 4 is pretty much the same as row 3. We just have more chain 1 spaces. So we have our chain 4, which counts as a double crochet, chain 1, and we'll stitch another double crochet in that chain 1 space and chain 1. Now brings us to our next chain 1 space. Double crochet, chain 1, and double crochet, chain 1. And we'll repeat this all the way around for row 4. Double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1 in each of the chain 1 spaces, working all the way around. And you may find that it might feel just a little bit loopy, but don't worry. It will lay nice and flat when we're done, and it'll also fit perfectly around the top of your keeper. So I'm going to continue on around, stitching a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, and chain 1 in each of the chain 1 spaces all the way around. I've completed row 4, stitching a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1 in each of the chain 1 spaces. And see how it lays flat? All right, now got my last chain 1. I'm going to join to my chain 3 of the chain 4 with a slip stitch. Then I'm going to go in the chain 1 space, and this time I'm only going to chain 3. That's because this last row is a shell stitch row. All right, so what we're going to do is our chain 3 counts as a double crochet, and then we're going to stitch 2 more double crochets in that same chain 1 space. Then we're going to go to the next chain 1 space and stitch a slip stitch. Then we'll go to the next chain 1 space and stitch a shell stitch, which is 3 double crochets. Then we'll go to the next chain 1 space and stitch a slip stitch. Grab your loop, pull that loop through the loop on your hook. Then we'll stitch 3 double crochets, which is our shell stitch, in the next chain 1 space. 1, 2, and 3. Then slip stitch in the next chain 1 space. And you can see I'm forming little shell stitches of 3 double crochets. We'll do this all the way around the edge of our coaster or the top of our crochet hook and needle hook holder. This actually can be lots of different things, and I like to make things where I use up my leftover yarns and make something pretty and useful. I'm going to continue working around the edge, stitching my shell stitches, which are 3 double crochets, in the next stitch, and then a slip stitch in the next chain 1 space. We're stitching all of this in chain 1 in the chain 1 spaces. 3 double crochets in the chain 1 space, and then a slip stitch, working all the way around the edge I've completed all the shell stitches and slip stitches in between, working all the way around. I've done my last shell stitch of 3 double crochets. I'm going to slip stitch and then join to the top of the chain 3 with a slip stitch, and we're going to tie off. I've already cut my yarn, and so I'm just going to go in the back of that next stitch, pull that loop to the back and tie off to the back, and I'll weave that in with a needle, and this is the way that it should look at this point. So it's all tidied up, our ends have been wove in, and it looks like a beautiful coaster, and of course it works great as a coaster. It's 6 inches across, it's a nice size, it's even a nice size small doily. But we're going to use it, of course, to top our crochet hook or knitting needle holder. Alright, so I've cut off a piece of yarn that's probably about 24 inches, and I folded it in half. And we're going to weave it in through row 4. Alright, and you can decide where you want your front to be. And what I do is I take the back of my crochet hook and I go in and out some of the holes. I hook that loop on and I pull it through. Alright, and I'm going to keep doing that until I've worked my way around, pulling the yarn through with my crochet hook. And I know a lot of people think this is an odd way to do it, but it works great for me. And if you want to do another way, that's certainly fine. Alright, so we're just going to continue to, I did that backwards. We're going to continue to work it through. And I don't cut my yarn yet because I like having that little loop to pull it through. And it works really fast. of getting it through all those little chain one spaces. Alrighty. I'm just going to pull on it to try to even it out a little bit. Alright, so now we have our string going all the way through and our ties on one side. We need to roll up a ball of yarn. You can use matching yarn or just whatever yarn you have on hand. It doesn't matter. We're going to roll it right inside, and that gives us something for our crochet hooks and knitting needles to hook against when they're inside the cup. Alright, we're going to put the cup right there. We're going to put this over it, and we're going to sort of stretch it down. And then we're going to begin pulling on these strings. Now this cup is a little bit bigger than some of the other ones that I have done. And so it's going to take just a little bit more stretching. But I'll just keep pulling it down and keep pulling on these strings until it's in place and sturdy. And then I'll tie a knot. Alright, and I want to put a little bow, just so it's pretty. Alright. There we go. And now I have a brand new hook holder that I can slide my hooks in, my knitting needles, and even my pens and pencils.